If you want to learn how to make a custom model for a weapon in Northstar with custom materials and a custom VTF reticle, then stay online with me and watch this video. So, the first step in making a model for us is to select which model we want to get. In our case, I will go and replace the pistol, the P2016. For that, you open this little page. It's going to be in the description. And you are searching for whatever you want. So if you want the flatline, for example, flatline is going to be called Winston. If you want the Kraber, it's the AT rifle. I think you get the gist of it. And because we want the P2016, I'm going to get the P2011. So this is its name in the game files, and we are going to get that. How are we going to get that? Well, if you have paid close attention to it in the previous video, we have used Harmony, like we downloaded this. Harmony basically allows us to extract stuff from .vpk files. .vpk files are some cool files that do a lot of cool stuff that I have no idea how it works, but it works, so yeah. So yeah, we just going to open the VPK. So we press open VPK, and then we go to our Titanfall 2 folder, the installation folder of Titanfall 2, and in here you click on VPK, and there you will see there is like a lot of these VPK files. The multiplayer weapons, for example, they are in the common MP file, which is up here somewhere. Wait, where is it? I need to find it. I'm currently here, MP common. If you search for some other model, obviously they are not all in the same file, so you may have to search them, but for weapons and pilots, they are all in this single file. So yeah, just open that, select, open, and then you see that Harmony made like this little thingy. In Harmony, you want to go to models, and in models you have all these little things. In models, we are now going to search for weapons. And in weapons, we are going to search for our weapon. In our case, it was the P2011, which is this. So what we do is we get the W model, which is our world model. There is 3 types of models as far as I know. At least that's what I know. There could be more, but as far as I know, there's 3, which is the W, which is the world model. That's basically the model that's going to be on the ground or in the hand of an enemy. And there's the PT-POV model, which is the weapon you have in your hand. Basically the first person model, more details, doesn't have LOD, level of detail. The W model has LOD, and there's also stuff like AT-POV, which is for Titans and stuff. But yeah, we are just going to, use these 2 because it only has these 2. So what we do is press on the folder of our weapon, P211, and then you see that it's selected. And then what we do is we press unback. This will allow us to select any thing to put it in. For me, I'm going to put it into my tutorial folder, which is our work directory, Titan models. And I have already made this folder before because I definitely didn't record this already and fucked something up. And here we just basically go in, select folder, and it's done. Now what we do is we check it if it's there. So go there where you execute it, and you will see that there is this whole path. It exported these 3, but because this is the one used in multiplayer, we can delete these. These are like, I think one of them is for single player, some special stuff. So yeah, you just need the one with your name, which is this. And yeah, the first thing we will be doing is the first person version, because for one, that's the most important of the 2. And the second part of it is because, well, we need to make textures for it, and the W version can in the end be basically copy and pasted. So yeah, let's do that now. You may notice that we cannot put this into Blender. I mean, if we import it in Blender, it won't let us because you cannot import these. So what we are going to do is we will use something that we set up previously, which is crowbar. Open crowbar, press on decompile. In the top right, press the browse button, go to your tutorial, go to the model you selected, weapons PT011, and select the PT POV first. You will see that the path changed. Make sure the things here are correct, and then we press decompile. Boom, it's decompiled. Now, what will you see if you go to the Titanfall models folder again? You see that there's now decompiled, and then there's a lot of these. And there's anims. These are our animations, and these are our things. So, we have just opened Blender, and I will show you something now. So, in Blender, we will now open this file, which is SysEngine QC. We go to our folder. Where is it? Where is it? Titanfall models, no. Models, this, and then decompiled, and then you see all of these. You could technically just import the SMD, but because it's better to work on, we will be making the QC, so you can just import the QC file. If you're wondering what the QC file is, the QC file is a big file which we will be working in later on. Which is basically the instructions for crowbar on what to do with all these things and what they stand for and what the model is for. Yeah. So what we do now is select it, and because it's easier to work on, we select the import animations box and make sure that it is not selected. And then import. This may take a while depending on your model, and then you see that we have this imported. So for anybody that has worked with Blender before and knows a bit about rigging and stuff, you will notice that there is a whole skeleton here with hands. This is all that we are going to keep. We will only edit our actual weapon. So yeah, on the weapon itself, you can see that it has a main body and a mag. There's also a suppressor here, which we can resize. This is the Pro screen. Yeah. So next thing we do is we take our model. In my case, it's the so-called Devil's Wound from Destiny 2. I have already made a mod with this weapon. So yeah, I'm just going to copy it from that mod's blend file. So now that we have this thing in, we can just let me just make sure that this is correctly, because otherwise it's going to look strange. So yeah. Now we have our new model in. This is my little pistol. My model in this case consists of this, which is where we put a reticle. If you don't have a reticle because your weapon has iron sights, you will not need to use these. Otherwise, it has a body, a magazine, and yeah. So it's situational. Should work for you, does work for me. You also notice that yeah, there's this side-on thing, which I just on accident copied over. I'm sorry. So yeah, what we do now is, normally it's possible that like your weapon is looking something like this and floats around in your blend file because of the way you set it up or because of the way the model was imported. But in my case, it was already scaled the way I needed. But yeah, take your model, all of the things from your model, so all the parts that belong to it, and make sure that it is where it needs to be. So you just line it up with the original model, because otherwise the animations may not look the way that you want them to look, or they won't be so good. I usually try to match up the area where the trigger and the magazine are basically located. So what we do is we just push it a bit up, down, and you will see that the mag lines up a bit, not perfectly, but yeah, it's just not obviously going to line up perfectly because it's just not the same model. The trigger is about right, the mag is about right, like that, so yeah, that's fine. What we do now is we apply location, scale, and everything else. So go all transforms, apply that, and now you will see that our models are located at 0, 0. What we do now is we take our model, turn it off so we don't see it, so we can work unobstructed on this. And we just move the body a bit to the side. We move the mag a bit to the side. And then we turn on our model again. So you may now notice that the Pro screen may have a location that looks good, but you can change that. So if you want to change the Pro screen location, go into the Pro screen, press it, select origin to geometry, move it to wherever you want it, and then set origin to 3D cursor. And the suppressor here is actually the same. What we do is we go to the suppressor, origin to geometry, then we make it smaller, make it up. So yeah, we just need to make sure it's about right. I think this looks okay. So yeah, you can actually scale them down, the attachments. Yeah, there's this one thing, but for some reason the suppressor is a bit to the side on the way. I don't know why. Some kind of respawn thing, I guess. Lol. Just move this a bit. So yeah. If it looks about right to you, you can just make this now, once again, this. So origin to 3D cursor. So it's now lined up with location 0. And yeah, what we do now is go to your weapon. This is a very important step because if you know what you're doing, you will know there is something called weight painting. Weight painting is basically telling our weapon, our mesh, the game, what parts of the mesh to animate with certain parts, with certain bones in our skeleton. If we look at the original weapon, for example, the magazine, we go select the magazine, go into this vertex view, and up here we select weight paint. And weight paint is basically a mode that paints the areas that are supposed to be affected. Blue means it isn't affected, like blue is 0, and red is the biggest, like the most you can get. Like you see, if I paint this now, it's going to get color, but we are not doing that. What we do is, on our original model, we check up on a couple things. For example, if I go to this list now on the magazine, you will see that soon, once we arrive at the bone called def-C magazine, it will turn red. So we go down a bit, and there it is, def-C magazine. Def-C magazine is used in the animation to tell the game, hey, if something is affected by this bone, then the animation probably has a bone called def-C magazine that is going to be removed from the weapon. Easy as that. So we note this down and we will paint it on our model later on. Same we do for this. You can also, if your model already has bones, in my case it's already weight painted because it's literally from a different mod, but it should, for you it will too, it will work. This kinda needs you to already know a bit of weight painting, obviously, so yeah, but we just go onto our model and we will weight paint the stuff we need according to our model. So go to the pistol again, weight paint, and then we look at it and see what we need. Nothing, and there we see def-C base. Def-C base is basically the base bone of our weapon. It's the root bone of the weapon. Everything attached to def-C base will move with the weapon. Then we just go down a bit more. So pro screen handgun is nothing. Def-C bolt. Oh, bolt is the spec part, the slide that moves when you shoot. That's the bolt. We go down more. There's nothing. Good. So we now know there is 3 veins we actually need for our weapon. So what we do is the magazine. We will weight paint with def-C magazine. Already have that. You will probably not have all the bones, but you can simply get them later on. But for now, that's not important. If you are watching this, you probably know how to weight paint. If you don't, yeah, look up some tutorials on YouTube, because to know this is kind of important. So now we go to weight paint and def-C base. You see I already painted a part of it. I also painted the bolt already, def-C bolt. And the same goes for our reticle. The reticle is also def-C base, so it moves with the weapon. No, that one was sight on, I think, but yeah, let me just remove this weight real quick. And then assign defc base to it. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Now, what do we do? Well, first of all, I'm going to join my reticle with this because they can be the same. What you do now is you select your model and then shift select the other weapon and join them with Ctrl J. Then you proceed to do the same with the magazine. Join the magazine and that, and then you select both object mode, edit mode, delete all its vertices. Make sure that this is correct. The next thing we do here is go back to object mode, and you will see that these now have some cooler names. Basically what we did now is we replaced the original model with our model and made sure that everything is put over correctly. Another thing that you need to make sure is that your UV map is called UV map, because that's the most important part about the texture stuff later on. The game wants, like, the export will use the UV map called UV map as its exported UV map. If it's called differently, you will not have correct UVs. So, yeah. Okay. So, we will still stay in Blender. Technically, we can export and put this in-game, and we will have it in-game with no textures, but we want to just complete this in one go. So the next thing we do is, let me just sit different for a second. The next thing we do is materials. Because, well, obviously, how does the game know what textures to put on? Sure, we could just replace the vanilla textures of the weapon, but I wouldn't recommend to do that because it overwrites textures. So if these textures are used anywhere else in game, they will be destroyed. Or rather replaced, so yeah. Okay, so how to do that? Select the model you're working on, go to the Materials tab, and you will see Materials. Assign the materials you want to the vertices you need to assign them to, and then we will need to call them in a way. So you see that the material called Devils, which is this in red, is assigned to the body and the magazine because they use the same material. And my reticle is this little yellow, and now it's yellow. Now it's blue. No, not this. Now it's blue. You see that they are different materials, which is fine. So the important thing is to name them. So the first thing we do is the red material we are going to call models weapon R2, like this. Use the backspace, and then we put in some name, like in my case I had the Devil's Wound in here, which is a folder, and then the next is going to be our material name. In my case I'm just going to call it Devil's Wound Body. And the reticle I will just keep like that. Models, weapons, Devil's Wound Reticle. These are basically the file paths that our mod will later on register the textures in. For the reticle, we will be using a VTF, resultTexture file, which is basically a file you can animate stuff with. It's way easier than using repak because it's literally being able to just plug in a single file and it works. So yeah, Devil's Wound Body is a texture we will create using repak. Yeah. So now that we have this and this, the materials assigned properly, we have everything set to its right origin, we can now do the next thing. We go here, Scene Properties, Source Engine Export, select SMD, Export Path, go to your decompiled tutorial, and we go to the mods folder where we just were, weapons, P201, and just select the folder that you had your QC in. Oh, sorry. Did it wrong here. So select the folder that your QC was in and press export, and press on scene export. This will export this. It gave me an error. Let me just see what the error is. Sometimes it's it has no polygon skipping. That's fine. And I closed Blender, but that's not important because we are basically done with this file. So what we can do now is we open Crowbar, compile, browse, go to our tutorial again, in this case no, wait, wrong, sorry. We select our model, the QC file, and well, all we do now is press compile. And you will see completed, there's no errors, and we know that because there's a compiled thing with this, and there's 3 files in here. Now, yes, there is an MDL file, but this is not going to work because you need to do another step here, which is what we are going to use MDL shit for. MDL shit I had in the tools folder. MDL shit, I already told you, basically makes the newer MDL format that we need from the other MDL format. So what we do here is go to compiled, models, P211, and then we just go here and you see that there's a VTX, MDL, and VVD. So what we do is, because there's a phi, we just make sure that only these 3 are selected, and then we track these in here. So MDL to MDL, VTX to VTX, and VVD to VVD. Then you can press check for good, nothing bad, it's all valid, and convert. This will give you a _conv.mdl, which is basically the final MDL. But we still need to make textures and the W model. So let's just first do the W model. So we browse, we decompile the W, decompiling complete. And now there is one problem with weapon W files, because they have this physics stuff and they have lots. We just exported physics, so make sure that you have this, because otherwise it doesn't export this physics, and the QC file wants this. Otherwise it has no collisions with the ground if it falls on the ground and stuff like that. Other than that, it's fine. Normally you have, if you select this LOD mesh SMD files, you have way more files because of level of detail, but we don't need level of detail because obviously my model doesn't have them. If you want to optimize level of detail, do it. I don't want to hinder you, but in general it's just not that needed. So yeah, you will know what you're doing if you want to do LOD files. Yeah, so next thing we do is we open Blender again. Gonna take a second. Okay, open Blender, file, import QC, and we just import the W file without animations. Import this, and you see that this is quicker, and it has this. This is the physics. For the physics, for now, what you do is scroll to the right and just press on the eye on the physics, so the physics are gone. And what we do here now is we take our weapon and we just copy and paste our weapon in there. You might notice that the weapon is not where it was before. That's because the W models are just in the center here. So what we need to do is we select our model, origin to geometry, so we can just drag and drop it, and then just like do the same as before. So just line this up a bit, like this, make it look okay. Doesn't have to be perfect because, well, you will not see it in your hand. So yeah, it's just for the menus. Then all transforms, apply the transforms. And then move the old one away. Make sure transforms are applied. They are, that's fine. Make the suppressor work. So take the suppressor, move it a bit down, blah blah, so it is okay in the menu, just so it's more beautiful. And yeah, one thing you notice is that obviously, because it doesn't need to reload this model, there will not be weight paint for magazine. There are only these couple things. So if we go to weight paint and we just check this, you will see that bold and base are still painted. So what we will do is we will just go into object mode, and we still have these painted. We don't need magazine painted, but the problem is our magazine doesn't have the base bone. which means in the menu, the magazine wouldn't be there because, well, it isn't painted. So we just need to make sure that our magazine has the def-c base assigned to it. So what we do now is we have that. def-c base is now painted. As I said, weight painting, look up a video on it or a guide. Very important to know what you're doing there. It's easy, but it's not hard. So please just, yeah. Next thing, you can actually like just join them together because you don't need multiple meshes for it. Then join them together to your original mesh, object mode, edit this, boom, delete the vertices, and you're done. Now we can already go and, well, export this. Because if you copied it over from your other file, you will have the material already assigned. Let me just rename this because, yeah, the naming is, I forgot that. Yeah, export, SMD, select your decompiled folder again, export, scene export. That's it. You will see that your physics are there, so in theory you could fit the physics, but just don't touch it. You don't need to if you don't want to make perfect weapons. Other than that, you're done there. So next step, compile. And upon compiling this, we will get an error. So we compile this, and you see error, blah blah, could not load file, something SMD. That's because we didn't select this setting while decompiling. So what we will be doing is we will open the QC file of the W. And in here there is a lot of stuff. So there is, for example, the model name, which is going to be the model where it's going to be output as, and the name. There's body groups, basically little parts that can be used in engine to turn off or turn off stuff. You don't need that. But what we are searching for is this, the LOD part. Because we don't have multiple LODs, we are just going to delete this. So what we do with deleting is we delete it. That's it. Don't worry about the rest here. We can already close this already. And now we can press compile. And you will see, hey, no error, it's compiled. Isn't that amazing? So now we can close crowbar. If we go to our compiled folder now, you see there's another W. So open MDL shit, clear your 3 paths. And for the W, you put in the paths you need, MDL, and there is now also a .ph, which is physics. So put the physics file in too, press check. It's done, convert, finished. So now, next thing we want to do now is to copy the base folder of our model. In this case, the base folder gets output in the compiled folder. So we take this, models, and now we go to our mod. In this case, I made a pre-made thing here. We put that in the mod directory, and then we copy our mod over to the folder of Northstar, of our Northstar mods. And then we go in here and make sure, I put, double click that on extend, sorry. And then we just delete everything except for the underscore converted MDLs. We remove the .mdl, the underscore converted, not the .mdl, sorry. And then we start Northstar. So what we see in game now is that there will not be any textures on the weapon, but that is not a problem because we will be making these textures in about 5 minutes from now on. Gonna just test if the model is in game, if it shoots right, if it's in your hand on the W model. That's it. So launch the game, launch Northstar. If you get any errors here, you probably did something else wrong. So yeah, just now go into the pilot menu, go to your loadout, select the pistol, and you will see I have the model in my hand, but there are no textures. That's fine. So now what we do is we go to the private match, settings, do that, start match. Good. And now we should have a model. Yes, okay. Now we see that there's a model in our hand. The magazine works. The bolt should also go back. Yeah, bolt goes back and slots back in. Okay, our model works. So now what we are going to do is going to give it a couple of nice looking textures. So we close North Star. I will just do quit. Okay, so we have noted down the path where we need to go. If you haven't, just go into Blender and check. This is the path we will need for our model. So we will now just make the textures. So tutorial, tools, and you will go to repak. Repak is what we use for textures. In repak, we will need to make a so-called map for it. Maps are JSON files and they are structured a bit like this. So I have filled this out already. But in your case, you will need to fill this out. I will put this file as a download in the description. Not as a download, as a pastebin, so you can just copy this and make it. Other than that, this is what it is. So now, let me explain this file, because there are a couple of quite important things. Let me just delete this, because I don't need that. The first thing you are going to need to know is that these files follow an order. You cannot just put stuff in here and expect it to work. They need to be structured correctly. That's just how the program works. Yeah. It also depends a bit on your version of repak. So, yeah. I have the latest main branch repak. I will have that linked in the setup. So it will work, but for you, that's it. So, next thing is, for your textures, if you don't know how to do textures, that's not what this tutorial is for. I will not show you how to properly make any textures. I'm just going to tell you a couple things about them. So, your material here needs at least a color, a glossiness, a normal map, and a specular map. AO and cavity are things that I have that you probably or maybe don't have. Depends on it. Anyway, if you don't have a cavity map, that's just a little tip. Most of the time you can actually get it from your normal map. Because there is something with our maps, our textures, that is a bit different from other games. Because, let's just go to our textures. We actually only use the red and the green channel of the normal map. So the blue channel is actually deleted. So there is the blue channel, and the blue channel can actually be isolated and be used as the cavity map. This is the blue channel. So, what does this mean? You can use your normal map's blue channel as a cavity map if you have one. Anyway, next important thing is these files need to have specific compressions for their DDS type. For more info on that, you can find that on the Northstar server, or I will also make a small list in the description of the correct formats. But I will just say it now. Your color map needs to be the X1. Let me just show you them. Your color map, that's this one, the diffuse color, whatever you want it to name, needs to be saved as this BC1 DX10. The specular, the where is it? AO map needs to be called the same way. Yeah, specular AO needs to be called the same way as the col, so BC1. The cavity map, on the other hand, needs to be, let me just show you. Your cavity map needs to be saved as, where I want to, as BC4 unsigned. Same goes for the glossiness, the GLS, also BC4. And your normal map, you want to save as BC5 unsigned. As I said, I will put a little table in the description for this, on which types you need. That's why you get paint.net. It's easy to use. Yeah. Make your textures, and then we are going to the map. On our map. So let's explain what this actually is. So the first thing here is we fill out our name. In my case, I use devils_rune. Devils_rune. That can be literally anything. Yeah. Then files. These are the files that will be included in our pack file. So what we do is we fill these out. The path here is the path they are in right now. So let's just make a split view here. you see in our assets, we have a folder called texture, models, weapons R2, Devil's Wound. So, and in there are these files, the Devil's Wound body, something, they are called like that. You need to make one of these for each of them. As I said, I'm putting this in the description. You need to adapt it a bit for yourself if you use this. Other than that, I can recommend you to check out the repak section of the wiki. Then there is this. This is the actual part that tells the game, or rather repak, what material to make. This just puts file into a file, like just puts the images into the repak file. This actually tells the repak file, yo, by the way, there's a material with these images. So what all of this means is not really necessary for you to know. It's just, yeah, I mean, would be cool because there's a lot possible, but don't worry about it. Anyway, here is something called path. The path is the actual path to our model. So this path here is what will be used in Blender. So if we take that and compare it here, that's what's supposed to be in here. It doesn't need to be case sensitive, so the weapons R2 can actually be down or up, doesn't matter. Yeah, put the path in here. This is what you will need in Blender, and then you just include the maps here. As for the maps, there is some very important stuff about these maps because the order of these actually matter. You cannot just put in any map and expect it to work. You need to have the maps on the correct lookout. So I just made this little thing for you. So I made it, not Spoon made it. He made this pinned post. I just screenshotted this for a second. So there are slots in this list. And you see, col is the first slot, normal the second, then GLS, then specular, ELM, and so forth. So what we do here is we need to follow this. So these slots cannot be used because they aren't used. And then slot 12, which is this one, is AO. The next one is cavity and so on. So if you want, for example, put in an opacity map, OPA, you cannot just put this in the top here. You need to put it underneath the cavity. Pretty easy to understand in my opinion. Yeah. Anyway, so with this thing filled out, make sure you have width and height correctly in your material. Otherwise it can also be weird. So with this out, with this map filled, you just save it. And then we go to repak. And we press this little button. Make sure the assets are in. Press button. And then it will tell you yes, blah, blah. If there should not be an error here. If there's an error here, you have made something wrong. As I said, the repak documentations on the wiki are okay. Otherwise, you can also go to the North Star server, search for repak, and you will find a lot of helpful things there. And now you will have these two files, starpack and narpack. Copy them. We go here, Devil's Wound, and here in our mod root folder, we make a folder called packs. In the packs folder, we put our packs. And in here, we need to make another file. I will just borrow it from another file and show you. So let me just go to somewhere here, packs. Take this and packs. We just put rpack.json in here. Open that with an editor. And you will see this. We don't need that. That's just something of the old age. Sorry. Make it look something like this. Whereas this one is your name, your rpack name. So this. Important, if you have a starpack, you do not need to put in the starpack name. Just rpack is fine. So that's already it. We can close this now. And if we go in-game now, you will see that we suddenly have something called textures. Okay, so in-game we can now see that textures are working. With textures working, you can also see animations better, yeah. But you still see that the reticle isn't working because we are going to do that with the VTF files. The world model, remember that's the model that you hold in hand, is also working with textures. What we do from here on is we go to our model and we make sure we get our scope. this is the file I will be using to the VFT. So what we do is we open this in VFT editor. How do we do that? Open Tools, VFT Edit, press on the Import button, select it, make sure that the settings are looking like this, press OK, save, and then we have it saved already. That's it. And now we have these two. So now there is one important thing you need to know. Going to our mod, we need to make a folder here, because in our mod is where the new stuff will be registered. So we need the folder of my actual reticle, which is this models, weapons, devil's rune underscore reticles. So we just make this. So in mod, we go and make something called, and this is very important, make a new folder here called materials, because in materials is where it's going to be. So materials, you make a folder called models. Like, you don't need to make this if your path is a different one, but for me that's the path. Materials is where materials are in, and then you just put this path behind it. So weapons, devil's rune, and inside of here you put your stuff. In my case, the VFT and VMT. So now this one we call devil's underscore reticle, and this one is the VMT. Inside I made this. I'm going to put this in the description. What is this? This is what I call the simple reticle. It consists of a base texture, which is going to be ours. So how do we make this? Into the base texture you need to put the actual like full path. So you need models, weapons, devil's rune, and then devil's underscore reticle. Translucent just tells the game, yo, this is translucent. Additive, I don't know why, but without additive, for me, this won't work. Proxies are basically something that tells what is supposed to be happening on a certain event in-game. For example, there's the HoloSight proxy, which activates upon going into sight. So with this proxy like this, the sight will only appear if we actually scope in. So with this done, we can save this, go outside, and rename this into Reticle. So very important for VTFs. This path, like the final material name here, Reticle, this is not the name of your image file, but of your VMT file of the script. The script then makes the material by doing this. Okay, so with this in place, we can now start the game again. Okay, so we are now loading in. And in-game you will now see that your VTF file, in my case, my reticle, is now gone. That's because I'm not in scope and I'm using this scope proxy. But if I go into scope, you see, oh, suddenly I have a reticle. So yeah, that's about it. What you may now notice is that the shot is offset from our reticle. As well as the name, we can also change the name of the weapon. So yeah, that's what's happening in the so-called key values files. To do that, I will link you the documentation on key values down in the description, in the wiki. I will also probably make a separate video on that too, so yeah. Anyway, that kind of concludes the tutorial. If you have any questions, just let them in the description or message me on Discord. Yeah, that's about it, I guess.